Hello everyone, my name is Teddy Bear and welcome to a special type of video. And yes, I am Teddy Bear from the Super Teddy Bear Bros channel. You may recognize me with me, Pokey, Monkey, and Sid. The other bros, which is why it's called Super Teddy Bear Bros for a reason. This is just called Teddy Bear, which is basically just me. The videos I personally want to upload whenever I actually feel like to. Something like a hobby, basically. But of course, I'll still upload videos on the STB channel, which is more of the STB episode videos, which is why I want to change things up a bit. Enough wasting time, let's get into the video. The video is about Blues Advent 6's patch note comparison, 26.2 versus 27.0, or 27.1 since the update, there was another, bug fix update, basically. Anyways, let's get into it. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Teddy Bear, and I hope you enjoy my future content I make. The first change was Glaivelord's DOT attack. With his main attack, not the glaive spinning around it, which is the group damage and such, I meant his main attack where he's throwing the glaives at the bad, as you can see on the screen, stacks up by doing 10 damage per tick, and it goes rapidly fast if he keeps attacking it, doing way more damage. And if you go for Millpath as a 520, it would do the DOT much faster than the 502, which gives it more group damage for the glaive spinning around it. So the change here is that they remove the DOT stacking, so it no longer stacks, so the more it keeps attacking, the DOT doesn't stack. So, yeah, you can see on the screen. But the DOT now does 100 damage per tick instead of 10, but obviously as the minimal DOT, basically, not the stacking DOT. And to be surprised, from the testing, it did way worse than the version 26.0. I mean, its single target damage is still pretty good for a tier 5. It's definitely makes sense for its price that it doesn't do as much damage. Because since it's more of a group damaging tower, and plus it might make a difference in a normal game rather than just single targets for late games such as the bad, so it wouldn't really matter much for the bad. But unfortunately, it makes 520 Glaivelord basically pointless now. Next up is Bionic Boomerang. Its attack delay has been reduced from 0.28 seconds to 0.238 seconds. So basically a small quality of life change that Bionic Boomerang now attacks a little bit faster since they did the change from last update where Glaives no longer increases the attack speed, and they might have forgotten to give the effect to the tier 3 Millpath, so just a small quality of life change, just so 250 doesn't feel nerfed basically. Next up is Snowstorm's changes. Snowstorm's duration now is increased from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. 26.0 it's 4 seconds, 27.0 it's 6 seconds, so additional 2 seconds. For towards mob class balloons, but I don't know if it's the fast forward or not, but mobs do feel like they're a little bit longer at freezing in 27.0 than 26.0, but I don't feel like it's 6 seconds, because Absolute Zeros takes way longer, and it's only 10 seconds worth of duration. But still an overall buff anyways. Next up is Snowstorm's Tier 5 Absolute Zero got a massive $6,000 price buff. Used to be a $26,000 upgrade in 26.0 fitting to a $20,000 upgrade in 27.0. So basically it's overall cheaper. Easy, hard mode and improbable mode also is cheaper. I am only showing the medium mode price is because it's the most accurate price comparison. Easy mode it's not as cheap. Hard mode and improbable mode is much cheaper. Let's get into the more boring changes, shall we? So, Advanced Intel used to give Ballistic Missile infinite range regardless if any towers are in range of the towers or not. Basically infinite range for Ballistic Missile no matter what. So the change here, what they did is that... first off, back in 18.0, they made a change where Ballistic Missile no longer has infinite range, but rather has the same amount of range as the base attack, basically. And Advanced Intel gives the Ballistic Missile infinite range if you buy Advanced Intel with Ballistic Missile. But for the main attack, you need Intel, and Advanced Intel, how it works is that you need a tower that's in range of balloons, but your sub doesn't. So if your sub is at the back of the track, but you have a random tower like the Dot Monkey on screen at the front, it will use the Dot Monkey's range to use its base attack that balloon, including mob class balloons, all sorts of balloons, including camo, even though the base tower can't even see camo. So what this is that Ballistic Missile is basically the base attack as well. So it no longer has infinite range, Now it functions the same way as the main attack, where you now need intel to have a lot of range with it. Next up is Ballistic Missiles Tier 4 First Strike capability. So, not only First Strike can do a lot of damage to a single balloon, but also it can take out multiple balloons or damage multiple balloons with one First Strike, like a multiple amount of mobs. But if it's like a lot of HP, then it's going to do very little damage to the other type of balloons. But whether balloon it was targeting would do the most damage. So what they did here is that they just reduced the pierce, so it doesn't have as much pierce as it used to. Next up is the 002 Center Path upgrade for the Monkey Ace. So in this change, they made it where center path functions as normal until any path is set, but now allows players to set a center location similar to Heli Lock. So basically, center path is like Heli Lock, but the ace spins around the center point. So you can see on screen, you could basically control the ace much more, which makes it a lot more like unique. It's not game changing, but it definitely makes it stand out a little bit more than the other upgrades. Next up is support Chinook from the Heli Pilot Tower. So there's a small quality of life change to the ability where you can now move the same tower on top of the spot it's already occupied. In 26.0, you can't move the Sun Avatar slightly in that small spot on this map frozen over. In 27.0, you can to slightly adjust the tower, which is a massive quality of life change. I mean, it's not game changing, but it definitely makes placing towers much easier. And it also applies to Dark Champion and Dark Knight as well, because before you couldn't like slightly adjust them. You had to like move them in a completely different spot to readjust their positioning. So it's a really good change. Next up is the 040 More Monkey Artillery Battery upgrade. So they now actually gave this particular Millpath Tier 4 ability yet after since it was launched. It was the only Millpath Tier 4 that didn't have the ability, but rather than a attack speed type of upgrade. And now they gave the ability where now it's called Bombardment, but it's still called Artillery Battery as an upgrade. It has an 8-second duration of faster attack speed by ×4, and the blast radius is increased by 15%, but the cooldown is 60 seconds, just like Popinard. But also, by the way, Popinard is the same, it doesn't benefit from the tier 4 ability at all. It still has the same Popinard stun and extra stun damage ability. Next up is the other More Monkey upgrade called the Signal Flare. The 003 upgrade now triggers a larger secondary AoE on impact with no weakness, which reveals all camo balloons size 50 and pierce 80, which means it has a bigger blast radius to decamo balloons than its normal attacking blast radius, and has more pierce to decamo balloons than its normal pierce towards attacking the balloons, which you use Signal Flare to decamo anyways. And also it can decamo black balloons, which is why it meant by it can decamo all balloons. And when it meant by all, it means it can also decamo DDTs, which makes a Monkey Knowledge where Shattering Shells can decamo DDTs completely useless if you just have Signal Flare all by itself without Monkey Knowledge. In the testing, I'm not even using Monkey Knowledge, and it can still decamo the DDT, and you can see the heli can attack the DDT because the DDT had camo but got removed by Signal Flare. Next is a very simple change they actually made a little bit of a quality of life change to, which is the 040 Summon Phoenix for the Wizard Monkey. So when you activate the ability, it now targets on first because you can now change the targeting on Phoenix. In 26.0, it targets on close by default. The testing might not be too accurate, but you can see it's not targeting the balloon that's closest to the exit or ahead of the pack, but rather attacking the nearest balloon. And that also applies to the tier 5 as well. But now, you can actually change the targeting option on Phoenix. So by default, if you leave it on first, the wizard itself, Phoenix will also attack the first balloon on the track. So you see in 27.0, it's attacking the first BFB, and when it gets close, or you can see I'm changing the targeting to last, and it's targeting different balloons. Like strong, it hits the ZOMGs, last hits the last BFB, close, which is its old targeting option, which no one really likes. And it also applies to the permanent Phoenix when you buy the tier 5 Wizard or Phoenix without using the ability. But also with the ability, you can control both of the targeting. Like when you activate the ability, you can see Wizard or Phoenix is on first. If you change the targeting, both of the Phoenixes will target on that same balloon wherever you're targeting, basically. Robot Monkey got a small price nerf for being a $7,000 upgrade in 26.0 to an $8,400 upgrade in 27.0, but I'll tell you why it got a small price nerf in a minute. In 26.0, Robot Monkey was basically the double the damage and triple the pierce multi-targeting version of its own tier 2. And even though it got a $2,000 price buff where it used to be 9k before 22.0 came up, and after 22.0 it got a $2,000 price buff as of 7k, it was not enough to float its boat. So it got a massive change where, despite getting a $1,400 price nerf, it got a massive critical damage buff where every 15th to 20th shot, it will do 10 layers of damage per shot, while every other shot still does 1 layer of damage, so it still benefits a lot from other buffs like Alk buff, Super Brittle, Glue Storm and such. That's not all the changes that Millpath is getting, but also Tectera got 2 more buffs on top of Robot Monkey's buffs as well, so that's an extra treat. So before, in 26.0, it used to do 1000 damage per use, now it does 2500 damage per use, and also a slight blast radius buff as well, so it can hit more balloons while doing a lot more damage than before. The anti-balloon got the same kind of buffs as Tectera with the ability, except instead of doing 3500 damage, it now does 5000 damage per ability use. But you thought that the blast radius was already big enough for you, while the made it even bigger went from 110 radius to 120 radius. The anti-balloon got the same type of critical damage buff. Instead of 15th to 20th shots where it will do extra damage, it's every 13th to 17th shot instead. And instead of 10 layers of damage per critical, it's 50 damage per critical because it does 5 times more damage than Tectera, and it wouldn't be 5 times more damage without the crits doing 5 times more damage as well. So this is just to show that it can take out a whole bad layer without the cross-pathing. Next is the Ninja Monkey's 004 Sticky Bomb, will now follows the tower's target priority for sticky bombs, which means if it's on first, it should be targeting the first mob class balloon. Not the balloon, because this is not Balloon Side Defense 5, by the way. In Balloon Side Defense 5, it used to able to throw sticky bombs on balloons, but it's only on mob class balloons in Balloon Side Defense 6 as what it's supposed to do. So yeah, in 26.0, it targets on the strongest balloon automatically, no matter the targeting on the sticky bomb. Now in 27.0, and now you can change the targeting option on the sticky bomb to choose whichever mob class balloon you want to focus on the damage at. This also applies to Master Bomber as well. But that's not just all. Sticky Bomb also has an additional buff where it now deals an additional AoE when they explode for 100 damage, 10 PS, and 40 AoE. And I'm pretty sure the 40 AoE means it is how big the nearby explosion radius is. That will do 100 damage to the nearest 10 balloons from that single Sticky Bomb explosion. The AoE change also applies to Master Bomber as well, but instead of doing 100 damage to the nearest 10 balloons, it's 300 damage, making it truly a one-mob demolishing machine. Next up is the Druid's 050 Spirit of the Forest upgrade, where outside of its range, it will do the same amount of damage as it used to, which is 2 damage towards normal balloons, and plus 8 to multi-HP balloons such as like ceramics and mob class balloons. Within at 100% of its range, it will do an additional plus 1 layer of damage towards normal balloons, and plus 4 to ceramics and mob class balloons. And within in its 50% of its range, it will do yet another 1 layer damage towards balloons, so basically double damage towards normal balloons, and it will do another plus 4 to multi-HP balloons such as ceramics and mob class balloons, so basically 20 layers towards them if nearby to the Spirit of the Forest. Also, keep an eye on the pop count as well, because when you compare it to 26.0 to 27.0, you may see a difference on their performance as well in the actual game. Next up is the other Druid's Tier 5 upgrade, Avatar Wrath, will now grant a slight portion of its RBE damage bonus to the Heart of Thunder lightning chains, as well equal to 1 damage for every 6000 RBE on screen, with a cap of 15 plus damage. So basically, if you cross path with Heart of Thunder, as you can see on screen, before it didn't get affected, all it was is the attack speed increase, which was it. 1 layers of damage, and now it can go up to the cap of 15 damage. And let me be honest, the comparison is not really that significant. I only gained like about 4,000 more pops, and that was literally it. So I feel like it needs a little bit more tweaking, because I still think 015 Avatar Wrath is still the better cross-pathing upgrade, especially when you can buff it a lot more than 205 Avatar Wrath. Next up is the Banana Farms 030 Monkey Bank will no longer have a deposited cash from the bank deposits Monkey Knowledge until the 040 IMF loan and above. So basically they just removed the Monkey Knowledge from the Monkey Banks, but they kept it for the Tier 5 IMF loan and the Tier 5 Monkey Knowledge. It's because Monkey Bank can make so much money at a very cheap price as itself that it was unbelievably broken just because of the depositing Monkey Knowledge. So they just removed it from preventing it from being too effective or being complicated to nerf and balance change and such. Next is the Spike Factory's 040 Spike Storm ability will no longer benefit from increasing to rate of fire. And I have a lot to say here. So what it is that if you give it overclock, it spawns more spikes in the last updates. But in the current update, they removed the effect. But I'm pretty sure damage buffs still apply to the Spike Factory. And also, it's not just buffs in general to increase the rate of the Spike Factory, but also if you cross-path it with Smart Spikes, where it produces more spikes in the start of a round, and then you use your Spike Factory ability, that no longer benefits as well, so it makes the other cross-path, the inferior cross-path, even worse. Carpet Spikes also gets the same nerf as well, and it's a big bummer if you ask me, so here's the reason why. Attack speed buffs is really important for Carpet Spikes, it's because it actually makes the upgrade actually decent for late game. And without the attack speed buffs, it's actually not as good as it would be. And it's not even considered broken because of how unreliable how all the spikes get swallowed up by the first mob class balloon or balloon in general. And you have to wait every 15 seconds for a passive Spike Storm effect comes out to attack another set of balloons slowly. And the only buffs you can only give it now is only damage buffs. So it's just a really big bummer. That's all I can say. This is the next and last comparison I will be showing to you guys, and it's the Admiral Brickell Sea Mine change. So in the description it says, due to much user concern with Brickell's Sea Mine seriously overkilling weak targets and wasting themselves in this way, they now have a short delay between activations. Well, the patch note description already says it to itself, so basically Admiral Brickell is more reliable in later points of the round. Because obviously the sea mines all get wasted early on in the round, like the weaker balloons, and then the stronger balloons later on in the round. So what they do is there's now a delay. So yeah, basically the sea mines can now take out the balloons at the back, so they all don't waste it. Even though they still do decent amount of damage to the first set amount of balloons, so it's not too weak. As you can see on the screen, the green balloons get equally amount of damage as the yellow balloons. Okay, so where do I start? So, Adora's level 7 sacrifice ability, where, you know, it helps her level up faster rather than spending brute forcing money onto the tower herself, gives her more attack speed. And we know how very ineffective it is, where it's only given 10% more attack speed for Adora. So now that's the minimum amount of increased attack speed she'll be getting. And every tower that has worth over $100, which majority of a lot of towers, will give an additional +1 attack speed on top of that 10% attack speed. So you get like 11% for every $100. So yeah. Obviously, you want to spend a lot of money so you can make her level up higher. And for level 20, it halves down to $50 every $50 instead of $100. So you can spend about half the amount to get the same amount of buffs, basically. Level 7's buff cap is at +25, so the maximum attack speed buff you get is 35% more attack speed. So yeah, you don't have to spend too much money after you get level 20, because the buff is like +25, which is actually good. And even better, the uptime, instead of being 10 seconds long, it's 60 seconds. That's literally a whole minute uptime. And I'm not sure if the buff also applies to Sun Avatar, so I'm not 100% sure. So it's a bit bizarre how much of a change this has been. And Adora definitely deserves some sort of buff because well, she's been one of my least favorite heroes for a longest time because she's a little lackluster for what she does. And after seeing all this change, she's actually quite good now, to be honest. Especially her level 7 ability being very effective, since like a certain value of money is now like different price. Certain money value gives her even more effective. So a base Dark Monkey is not as worth it because you get like 12% more attack speed and such. Yeah. And also, level 20 True Sun transformation damage bonus has been increased from 5 damage to 8 damage. So they want Adora to be useful for late game as well, because if you all didn't know, Adora can get buffed by the True Sun Guard. If you have the True Sun Guard and Adora in the same game, Adora gets a massive damage buff, not just from the Sun Guard's buffs, but also an additional buff of another 5 layers of damage. And now they increase it to 8, which is nearly double the amount, which is quite crazy to be honest. But to be honest, I will still prefer Azili in late game strategies, basically. Next up is Sarda's patch notes. So for level 13, she used to do +1 extra layer of damage to anything, basically, which is now instead grants +1 damage if the balloon is stunned. So basically level 7 balloon weakness, if you get to level 13. Level 17 now only does +1 layer extra damage by default instead of 3, because now level 17 now grants +1 damage to Sarda's level 7 balloon weakness, so even more damage to stun balloons, and +1 damage to Sarda's afflicted balloon weakness, so basically doing more damage towards corrosive, stunned, and DOT balloons, basically. So yeah, that's the change. I thought it was going to have some buffs to it, but no, it's specific levels. You can see level 17 now grants Sarda level 7 and level 11, so it's basically enough, and it's not really worth to check them out anyways. Okay, we're at the end of the patch notes here, so I'm just going to go over them quick because they're not really that significant or important to a lot of people, so let me hit them out quickly. So, time stop, what it does is that it freezes everything on your screen, including your towers attacking the balloons and the balloons roaming through your defense. And for whatever reason beforehand, it puts you on a disadvantage towards bad balloons, such as the BAD, like the big purple mob class balloon, are no longer ignorant to the passage of time. So basically, they will freeze alongside with the ability, so it's no longer a disadvantage type of a power. But still, no one's not going to really use the power, because if you're good at the game, you're not going to be using the powers anyways. You would just rather find a way to try and beat the game somehow. And then for Temple and free play balance, the 505 Super Monkey base attack damage reduced from 75 damage to 50, which means doing less damage per shot. The 505 Super Monkey attack multiplier for sacrifice powers reduced from 3 times to 2 times, so it's only 2 times stronger instead of 3 times. 50% weaker. The free play formula for mob health increased from round 125 plus, reduced from 0.20 to 0.15. So basically, the mobs are not as tough as they used to. The same goes for the other one, as instead, round 152 plus reduced from 0.50 to 0.35. And that's all the patch notes. Anyways, what do you guys think of the update? Not the new content where they added Bloonarius and the 555 Dart and Boomer, I meant like the patch notes and such. My most favorite change by far is definitely the Robo, Tech Terror, and Anti-Balloon change. I feel like the Robo Monkey buff is probably one of my most favorite changes I've ever seen to a tower, basically. Because they're now like 25% stronger. Even though they're a little bit more expensive, it makes them look more viable. And it will make a lot more players like Millpath Super a lot more than before. Oh, so yeah, the 2 videos I made on the Super Tabor Bros channel were the things I want to see in the future Bloons Tower Defense 6 patch note videos, whether they're called, the part 1, part 2 video. The 2 changes that I actually wanted to see in this update was only Tech Terror and Spirit the Forest. And I forgot about Robo Monkey that needed to change as well, so it's a warm welcome that Robo Monkey gets the buff that carries over to the Tech Terror, and Tech Terror again a separate buff as well, on top of Robo Monkey's buff as well. As for Spirit of the Forest, yeah, it's a good direction in what they're going for Spirit of the Forest, but there's a problem with it being a bit buggy, where the first mob class balloon that gets popped, the first balloon out the 4 children, either ceramics, mobs, BFBs, or it could be one of the DTs or ZOMGs from the bad, they just don't take damage until they run back into the stronger brambles again. And it's not good because it means, well, you're guaranteed to leak to those balloons, or they're going to mess up your defense a bit. And I feel like that should be fixed at some point, hopefully soon. Maybe like 27.2, they might fix it. I hope they don't leave it out like they did with Superglue's bug since 23.0, and it's been like 3 major updates later, and they finally fixed the update, and also buffing Superglue by 7k and such. So I hope they don't leave out the bug too long, because I feel like that's just a little bit more of a spread awareness to the people that want to use Spirit of the Forest as mainly DPS towers, like for example 1 Druid challenges, which I did try. But the problem is I was leaking ceramics from ZONGs, which I shouldn't, because the ones that were actually taking damage were taking damage at the back, while some of them are just getting flying past, because, well, they get further the more mobs there is on the screen. Anyways, that's just a little rant. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to be making more of these type of videos in the future on the Teddybear channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Super Teddybear Bros channel for other type of videos you might want to see on that channel as well. And see you guys later. Bye.